our children were our two oldest children were 1 and 3 years old. We were growing a small amount of medical cannabis in our basement, and I won't go into like the whole process of how we were essentially ratted out and how like this all happened, but we had a SWAT raid on our home in 2009 in Columbia, Missouri, my husband and I. I was actually in the middle of having a miscarriage that day.
Oh my
And so
God.
that was, yeah, so that was the only reason. It was one of those things where it made it a lot harder on me, but because of that, my children weren't there when this happened. And I'm so, so grateful for that, because the PTSD I have from it as an adult, I'm sure would have manifested very differently if they had been there as small children and had to witness what we did. It was about, and this is in 2009 in the middle of Missouri, and things obviously changed since then, but we had a SWAT raid on our home where 3 different law enforcement bodies raided our house. There was a state police group there. There was a local or a state like trooper group there. There was municipality police there, and then there was like a statewide drug task force that was there. A dozen armed men. I'm in the middle of a miscarriage, but they're still holding a gun to my head. They still knocked the door down, even though we were fully cooperating. We had nothing on our records. We were living in a brand new neighborhood where all the houses kind of looked the same with brand new sidewalks and everything like that. There was literally like they could have knocked on our door and talked to us about it, and everything would have been fine. But that
Yeah.
wasn't how they handled it at all. They treated us as if we were like harboring terrorists in our house or something like
Wow.
that. So I was not arrested. My partner Travis was, and he still is a felon because of this infraction in 2009 today. But that experience and the way that our civil liberties were really, really, stamped on that day really
Yeah.
changed my thinking about a lot. And I will say, just so that you know, when they weighed out all of the cannabis that they found in our basement in the raid, including the stems and the leaves and a part of the root mass and everything, it was about 12 pounds.
Oh
So
my
that's
gosh.
that is what I mean. And so it was probably
Shut
half
up.
that really if you were just going to cut it down to the flower. So anybody that like consumes or operates in the cannabis industry knows what a small amount that was.
Yes.
And the way we were treated because of it, like I said, it was very violent. It was very, anyway, so that happened, and going through the whole legal process of, my partner being arrested because of it, and, having him go through the whole judicial system and through his probation and stuff. And then it really sort of opened my eyes up, that experience, to a lot of things I was sort of blissfully unaware of at that point in my life, like things like civil asset forfeiture, things about, social injustice, things about equity, and just it really opened my eyes up. Like that's when I started learning more about the history of prohibition of cannabis in the United States, and like why things were the way they were. There were things I just had never really educated myself on. I knew about the laws, and that was really it. And I really hadn't done a whole lot. So it caused a huge shift in my beliefs. And in less than 3 months after the raid was when we moved out here to Portland, Oregon. And we've been here
That's a
since
big
then in
change.
2009. And that was really what sort of gave me two huge things as like an advocate. One being, I can't believe people are treated like this every day. And not only are people treated like this every day, but it's done through a very, very racist lens. If we had been living somewhere else, if our skin had been a different color, if we hadn't been able to afford a good lawyer, I'm sure that things would have turned out very, very, very
Yeah.
different for us. We were white and we had a good lawyer. And I believe still to this day, that's why things went the way that they did for us. And that's simply not fair. It's not equitable. It's not ethical. It's not moral, in my opinion, all of
Right.
those things. And so that
Yeah.
was one thing. And that's where the still like the social justice and the economic justice piece comes from, as I was just talking about, is that experience. The other experience that it gave me was I had a really nice little like play group of moms built out for myself that we would go to the park and the pool and things like that with our kids. All of them turned their back on me. None of them would speak to me after the SWAT raid. None of them. It was like they were like, well, you did this and now you're a bad person. And in my head, I was like, it really caused me to question my own self, because I was like, am I a bad person? Like, we were growing
No,
cannabis and we were literally giving it to AIDS patients and cancer patients and stuff like that. Like, we weren't growing it to do anything else than that with it, really, besides have some for us personally. And
and none of
so,
them had ever experienced cannabis. They hadn't smoked it or enjoyed it themselves
no,
at
they
some
were
point in their life.
really
It
like,
was
"You're evil, you're a bad person, stay away from me." It was very, and so that was really difficult for me as like a young mother that was, you really depend on that kind of community that you build out for yourself when
absolutely.
your children are younger as a parent, to like, talk about parenting and to have, social interaction for your kids and stuff. So that was really, 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 really hard for me. And like I said, it took several years for me to even be able to talk about that whole process. To
Well, the
and
miscarriage alone, like as a woman that had a miscarriage, like you need that time to mourn. And I'm sure most of our listeners have gone through something like that as
yeah.
well. Like I can't even, it's not even fathomable to me how you would then be rated on a day like that and have to go through all like that. Like that definitely would change your entire life and how
It
you look
was,
at
yeah,
things.
it did. It really, once the dust settled from it, we were kind of like, well, we need to do something about this. Like, this is not okay. And so that's kind of where really, I, I don't, my mother has always been involved in different things. So I think I get this kind of activism slant from her. But like when I was in fifth grade, I was selling stationery and trail mix to save the rainforests in Brazil.
Oh yeah, you've always
Fast,
had
I was doing other
it.
advocacy for things like, even women's reproductive rights when I was in high school. And then I became a teacher and was doing tons of advocacy for education reform. So it was kind of like already in me. And so that
Mhm.
experience sort of like really funneled that like advocacy all into the cannabis sector for me. And I think, founding the group called yeah, Moms for Yes on Measure 91 in 2014, I think one of the reasons that it was so um it wasn't easy, but why it was less difficult for me to like put my face out there onto the campaign was because of that experience I had with those moms after the SWAT raid. Because I was like, well, I've already had, people turn their back on me because of this, and it hurt really, really bad. So if people are going to do that, I guess I'd rather know now,
But
than if something else comes.
what a transformation to go from a community like that that completely shuns you to a new community of women that support you and believe in the same thing. Like to find that is, is
It,
incredible.
it
You know,
meant everything. It really
yeah.
meant everything.